Day one of fall camp is in the books. What did we learn? Something substantial? Find out next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts, and we're on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances today with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year.
All right, welcome in. I am Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone is with me. You've found the Locked On Nebraska podcast, and on this day, we have practice to discuss. Nebraska opened preseason football camp on Monday. The Huskers showed us a little bit of their, first of all, they showed us their grass practice field, the new grass. It was so soft. I walked on the grass, and my initial observation was that it was like walking on a mattress. It was very, very fresh, very nice looking, and it just felt so soft under my feet.
You walked on the grass, the grass that everyone is talking about, that grass?
I did. It was that grass, yes, and I took a step off onto the artificial surface that Nebraska has placed in the shadow of the beautiful Osborne Legacy Complex, and then I took a step back onto the grass and back onto the turf, and I can say that it's nicer it's just a much better experience to walk on the grass, and I'm sure it is to practice and play and roll around and do everything that you do on the grass.
Quick thing, you'd have to be really committed to the bit to do this, but you should have upon stepping on this very soft, pillowy Augusta National like grass, you should have made sure Matt Rhule was looking at you and then gone down with a knee injury, a fake knee injury or something like that, and just see what his reaction would have been, and just be writhing on the ground in pain. It was the grass. I hate this grass, or something like that, because they love the grass.
If a member of the media got injured at practice, I wonder what would happen. I wonder if the trainers who tend to the players would pay any attention at all, or if it would just be maybe another person in the media who came over and extended a hand to kind of help you up. And it's I think it's a torn ACL. No, just get up and move along. There's somebody who needs to come over and stretch in this space you're in right now.
Yeah, we'll take care of you later. You're not going to get not much attention at that one. So yeah, you're probably right. Maybe not the best thing to do.
I did observe an injury, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. Or to call it an injury is probably alarmist, but I did observe somebody tweak something, and guess what? It didn't happen on the grass, because I don't think that can happen on Nebraska's new grass at the outdoor practice fields. Okay, that's enough. That's enough about the grass. There were a lot of observations made after what was 20 minutes watching Nebraska in helmets and practice clothes, no pads, no hitting. And I will say this, I wouldn't put a lot into maybe what you're reading out there from various sites. There are things that we can take away. One very popular takeaway was that Carter Nelson looks different.
And
Carter, yes, he's added size. We didn't see him in the spring, but we saw him, but we didn't get to watch him practice in the spring because he was coming back from hip surgery, and he's been healthy now for a good chunk of the summer, obviously, because I will agree, he looked like a different kind of player. He looked like somebody who's going to be able to give you something that Carter Nelson did not provide in his hybrid wide receiver, tight end frame from his true freshman season a year ago. And I think that was to be expected with him because of the nature of the kind of prospect that he is. This was a borderline 5-star prospect coming out of rural Nebraska, Ainsworth, Nebraska, played 8-man high school football.
Yeah, right. Played 8-man football, right? It's just it's a different deal.
So we didn't think nobody thought he was a finished product.
Right.
Or even close to it.
He better be a lot bigger in his second year at Nebraska, right?
And he is. And he looks like somebody that if you were game planning against Nebraska and you flipped on the film and you saw him running a route, whether he caught the ball or not, or was targeted on the pass route, you would think, okay, he's somebody that we're going to need to account for when they decide to start involving him in the offense.
Yeah, I think those things can get a little bit out of control, but generally that is usually the first day of observations. Like, this guy's bigger, or this team in general looks like it's in better shape, or something like that. And you can get a little bit dangerous when you get into that category, because people sort of immediately equate it to, production or wins or something like that. And that's not necessarily always the case. I saw a lot of comments about Heinrich Harburg yesterday, and people, watching him do tight end things with the tight end. We knew that Heinrich was a great athlete. Heinrich is a great athlete. And so it shouldn't be surprising for him. In my opinion, it shouldn't be surprising that he looks smooth running routes on air. Right. So,
right.
What does that equate for him in terms of production? I think, obviously it's the first day of camp and there's a ton to be decided. It's a good thing that he looks the part as an athlete out on the field with the rest of the tight ends. But, I think there's a lot of wood left to chop there too.
Having Nelson and Harburg together at one position, and to really only be covering one half of what is the top group of players at that spot, Nebraska hasn't received a ton of production from the tight end spot in 2 years with Matt Rhule as the head coach. And I do think that is going to change in 2025. I feel like it's a prediction that's been made before at times during Thomas Fidoni's career at Nebraska. You forget that Nebraska had Nate Borkircher, who would have been its top returning tight end. Thomas Fidoni could have returned in this program. Like, now we're getting to the place, even though, let's see, of the top 4 tight ends on the roster, 2 are from the state of Nebraska. But we are now getting to the place where you see the results of Nebraska being a tight end rich state at the high school level, because it's not just those players. Like, they attract tight ends at this school for whatever reason. I'd like to see them start scoring touchdowns. Like, I think that if you're going to maximize the potential of this offense and that position within this offense, like, you have everything you need there now to make the tight end spot a major weapon for Dana Holgorsen. And Luke Lindenmeyer came out. He's an interesting guy. He's an interesting guy.
He got up there and was like, this is
tight
cool.
end you.
He was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. Do I give an opening statement? I thought that was pretty funny.
Yes, and he proceeded to call it tight end you when he was asked about the group of players at his spot. And look, Nebraska's not tight end you yet, but I understand what he's saying, because if you could walk out there and watch practice and you look at the guys who are running around there, they've got it. They've got what they need. So start producing, no pressure. Marcus Satterfield. By the way, Luke Lindenmeyer says that Marcus Satterfield reminds him of his uncle. And then Lindenmeyer just dropped in that his uncle gave him a rug burn when he was younger. So, okay. Like, that's fairly random and not something that we've ever been told in the media room before, but look out for Luke Lindenmeyer's uncle in Arizona if you're ever there.
Did he explain how?
No, there was no explanation.
All right, cool. I'm curious. I guess a little bit more now than I was before, but it does seem relatively innocuous. And then another guy, by the way, in that tight end room that got an offhand mention, who is not viewed as the top 4 guy in that group at the moment, is Eric Ingwerson, who got, just a little mentioned by Rhule. And we like Ingwerson too. So hopefully
throw him in there.
Yeah, there's some guys who, they could piece it together in that room. It's a fascinating room, that's for sure, and a lot of athleticism, but we'll see what happens.
Rhule says that Mac Markway is running 21 miles an hour. So that's fast. I mean, if you're running over 20 miles an hour out at practice with the GPS tracker on, then you're in the fast group of players. Let's mention too, before we take our first break, that there were observations made about the offensive line. And it was noted that Gunnar Gatula was working with the first group at left tackle. So from left to right, Nebraska had Gunnar Gatula, Henry Lutovsky, Justin Evans at center, Rocco Spindler at right guard, and then it was Tyler Kanak at right tackle. And you also saw Teddy Prohaska over there, and Turner Corcoran was in a green jersey, and of course all of the younger guys like Grant Bricks and Maciejczak and Sam Sledge were hanging around too. I would not put a lot of stock into Gatula being number one at the left tackle spot. Elijah Pritchett, the Alabama transfer, was with the twos, and from what I understand and everything that I've heard through the offseason, they're expecting and they're also paying Elijah Pritchett to be the number one left tackle. So here's the thing with Gatula. Like, he was injured in the spring, had shoulder surgery. He's made great strides, appears to have come back in excellent shape. Rhule talked about the work that he's seen from Gatula. He was the starter last season at that spot after Turner Corcoran went down. So I think it makes sense to come out day one of preseason camp and throw him a bone. Like, he didn't lose that job. And, Elijah Pritchett, they haven't had the chance to compete against each other at this point. I could see Gatula ending up at right tackle if he proves himself to be one of the Huskers' top two at that position group. I could see him being a swing tackle if Tyler Kanak earns the starting right tackle job. I don't see Pritchett, however, as a swing tackle. Like, I think I think he's going to get every chance to earn the starting job at left tackle.
Well, it's really interesting. It's an interesting prospect, at least to think about. I think before yesterday, I would have just put 4 tackles for 2 spots, and just mixed them up a little bit. But Gatula getting the first reps, we're once again not reading into it too much, but maybe it's a signal that, hey, you could go out and win the job from Elijah Pritchett if you perform really well in fall camp. And if that's the case, if you just follow that line of thinking, then Pritchett could theoretically, you just said you couldn't see this, but like theoretically he could go play right tackle, which is what he did at Alabama all of last year, where he has experience doing. That sounds like a really good thing for Nebraska. Or if you flip the two over, and Pritchett is your left and Gatula is at the right, or whatever it means. Like I think one of those two options is the best case scenario for Nebraska. I think you just have to, do fall camp here and see how it ends up.
Yeah, Pritchett has experience at right tackle. He played there for the Crimson Tide last year because Alabama has Caden Proctor, the Iowan, the future NFL first rounder, who's man in the left tackle spot. But I just think if I'm pressed to answer the question right now, I think Elijah Pritchett is their left tackle on August 28th. But we'll see. It's great to have competition, and they do some competition too. We'll get to this after the break at the backup spot behind Emmett Johnson. We heard from Emmett Johnson. We saw quite a bit in as much as you can in 20 minutes at the running back spot on Monday. We will talk about that after this.
But first, I want to tell you about 5 Hour Energy, ladies and gentlemen. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. That's right. Perfect golf drink. In fact, I had one this weekend, the Transfusion, that is. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, there's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. Like me this weekend when I was playing in 1,000-degree heat. That would have been very, very nice after playing 18 holes the previous day. I'm on the 30th hole of the second day of a golf weekend. I would need a 5 Hour Energy Transfusion drink, and that would have helped me out. Got to the finish line anyway, still won the tournament this weekend. But man, I probably would have won by 10 strokes had I had that 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. So get on that today. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best part of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. All right, welcome back. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Tuesday this week, preemptive reminder to get your mailbag questions in. There should be some questions coming off of the first week of coverage from fall camp and things that people saw on Monday at practice, and more availability coming up this week. Mitch mentioned the running back room. I think, if you ask going in, where most people will sort of flock to and wonder what this looks like behind the starter in one specific room, they go to the running back situation. And really, after Emmett Johnson, it's incredibly wide open from what it seems like at this point. Most people noticed this at practice, and Rhule mentioned it afterwards. Quentin Ives had a little tweak during practice today, tried to get back in there and run drills, and he was back in there, I think, but hit the stationary bike, and maybe it's just an early fall camp tweak and nothing to worry about. But that is of note because, like I said, totally wide open at the second running back, I think.
Yeah, you hate to see that on day one, and it was right at the beginning and I don't think we saw the first minutes of practice. They let us in somewhat in the first half of practice, and the running backs were taking handoffs from the quarterbacks, and Ives was running second through the line behind Emmett Johnson, and he looked good, looked strong. He's a tall kind of running back, like angular, but powerful, and just was making a cut, and it looked very much like it was an ankle. I don't think that you were dealing with anything like a knee or more serious, and just a tweak, but he wasn't putting a lot of weight on that as he hobbled back to the back of the line and was met by the trainers, and they helped him over to a stationary bike where he spent the rest of the time that we were able to observe. So it's very possible that Quentin Ives is back out there. He gets some tape. He's back out there on Tuesday, or it could be something that lingers. You just don't know at this point. And right. That's just not the place that Nebraska needs or wants or can afford to have much of anything go wrong. Already Jamarian Parker is down. He was missing for the second portion of the last half of spring ball. The true freshman out of St. Louis, highly regarded running back, was dealing with some injury stuff and just wasn't just didn't appear to be in the kind of shape that Nebraska needed him to be in. So he was not a part of things on Monday either. So Rhule listed Parker among the players. He's in camp. They're all in camp. There is no, only 105 no or there's no limit this year. They're all there. And Parker's somebody who's still working to get back, along with Roger Gradney, linebacker, defensive lineman, Gabe Moore, Preston Taumua, he's an offensive lineman, Trent Euler, running back, Demetrius Bell still working his way back at receiver. We talked about him on the pod quite a bit, but not yet ready to unleash. Connor Keneally's got that ACL that he's coming back from. Nolan Fennessy's an offensive lineman. Juju Marks. I mentioned Jamarian Parker, Malcolm Simpson, who we talked about on the pod here not long ago, and somebody that I was expecting to give it a go, give it a run to play as a true freshman because of the situation with depth at D-line. He's coming back from surgery and wasn't out there on Monday at the start of camp. Tyson Terry had the ACL in the spring, and then quarterback Bodie Sukup was not able to practice on Monday as well. So they've got a list to start camp, and you don't want to see more running backs added to that.
No doubt. And I will mention, while it's the first day, it is an important time to be missing, right at the start of camp, right at the start of, all of a sudden, if you're back in 4 practices or a week or 2 weeks or something like that, you're behind the 8 ball quite a bit. So I wouldn't overreact to guys not being available for that. It's not like there's a premier starter in that conversation either. But it will hinder their ability to be able to get on the field, especially in the early portion of the season. So that's something to think about. Not a huge, takeaway from day one, but there's a bunch of guys on that list.
Okay. We bury the lead. The player that I went to watch early in my time out there, number 83, Archie Wilson. And while I watched, Archie Wilson was punting with his left foot. He boomed a couple of those rugby-style rollouts. I saw him punt normally. It was trading off reps with Camden Cook, the redshirt freshman punter in camp for Nebraska. And I thought to myself that Camden Cook just had to be wondering, as Archie Wilson, Nebraska's new punter from down under, had to just be wondering, like, why is this guy out there showing off in the way that he is with doing all these fancy things? Matt Rhule introduced a new term for us when he described Archie Wilson's punting repertoire. Let's listen to what the coach had to say, and then we'll react to it.
A little bit in the summer. I think what he can do is fantastic. I mean, he can roll right, he can roll left, he can really run. He's fast, and he can throw. Yeah, but I'm saying he can punt with both feet. Really fun guy. I'm really glad that he's here, but I mean, it's certainly not going to be a moving target, and I think the ability that he has to run the ball and throw the ball, I think we proved last year. I think we faked it a couple times. We'd love to fake the ball. So if you know that you don't know the aiming point and you know that there's always a chance that he could throw the ball or run with it, I think that is going to put defenses really at a disadvantage. And, he can kick all the different kicks. He can kick the banana ball. He can kick all, so when you talk about our wind here at Memorial Stadium, the ability to spin the ball in different ways. And so, those guys that grew up playing, rugby and Australian rules football, like, kind of basically play catch with their feet too, So, I mean, he's really special with the things he can do.
What's a banana?
It's a ball that just spins this way, and so it just kind of boomerangs on you like a banana, like I said, bananas on you, and so it's just...
He can jump off buildings. he can cook the team breakfast. He can drive the bus.
And he can pass, as Booby Miles' uncle said in Friday Night Lights.
Did Matt Rhule mention that he can throw the ball?
He did mention that
a few times.
So it is fascinating, what he said about the wind in the stadium. I'm thinking back, and this is just anecdotally, there's very few times off the top of my head that I can think about a Nebraska punter punting a ball to the other team. The returner struggles with it, even though the Nebraska wind is always it's always a factor in that stadium. Like, you got to take advantage of that stuff a little bit, and some of it is just luck. But if you got the punter punting things all different ways, and he's bananaing and he's on the run, and he's also left-footed, naturally
right-footed.
And right-footed, but he's naturally left-footed.
Seems to be the case.
The ball is spinning the other way on a normal conventional punt. I mean, that's the thing.
It matters.
Maybe that gets Nebraska another 2 possessions or something like that this year, and completely flips a game or something like that. That's not nothing. So yeah, I don't know exactly what the impact will be, but it gives you a better chance for the impact to be higher, I think, when he could do different things the way Archie Wilson can.
Can't wait for the first banana ball punt. That's going to be a moment for us at Memorial Stadium. So, okay, there's more from Matt Rhule to hear from Monday's media availability. Let's come back after this and talk a little bit about the psychology of the Nebraska football team as the head coach sees it. Welcome back. Reacting to day 1 of Nebraska's preseason football camp. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer with you. Thank you for joining us. Get your mailbag questions to us. Send them via email, lockedonneb@gmail.com. Let us know where you're emailing in from, and we'll include you on the map. So we heard, in addition to Rhule, we heard from Luke Lindenmeyer. As we mentioned, we heard from Emmett Johnson, the number 1 tailback. I thought Emmett was looking big, man. He's got a improved upper body. Going to be able to dish out some punishment in the Big Ten this year. Nebraska needs to keep him healthy. And then we heard from Cam Lenhart, junior defensive end, and he talked about the growth that he's seen as Nebraska tries to replace its entire defensive line.
Yeah. I loved hearing from Cam Lenhart because it feels like he's got an old soul. He's kind of one of those guys. He also sort of looks the part too. He looks like, if somebody told me that guy's like 42 and he's done a bunch of different jobs in his life, I'd be like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's always fun to talk to Cam Lenhart too.
That was the case with Cam when he was a true freshman. So we just continue on with that here in year 3. Heard Cam talk about Keone Davis, Nebraska's young prospect at defensive end, and then I asked him, because we're talking about Keone Davis, we should talk about Williams-Nwaneri. They seem to go hand in hand, and so he offered a few thoughts on those guys too. Really interested to see as we get into the season just what the usage is of those two players, because at some point they're going to be out there making a difference and wreaking havoc, at least from the looks of them. So one thing we heard about from Matt Rhule, he was asked on Monday about his confidence in this team. And I thought his answer was insightful in that it shed a light on how he is dealing with this group, kind of the minds, inside the minds of his third team at Nebraska. Let's go to that, and we'll have thoughts.
Well, I always have confidence in our players. And, the last thing our players need is for me to say they're not going to be good. They hear that enough. So I think they're going to be really good. And we've trained them. I know everybody wants us to, in the world, not you guys, but just in the world, it's always like, we'll go get this guy in the portal, get this big recruit. But, we want all those guys, don't get me wrong. But, they come in at 18, and we want them to play when they're, unless they're ready early, but 20, 21. And so I've just seen them lift. I've seen them run. I've seen them grow. And I think the only thing that's going to limit them is their own brains,
Yeah, well, I left that in because I wanted to get that last sentence in there. The only thing that's going to limit them is their own brains. And isn't that just kind of the story of Nebraska football at this moment?
Yeah, it has been for a while. There's been a lot of talk about this, the confidence of this group, and I think we talked about it for a few minutes last week. The idea, are they artificially kind of pumping this confidence into the group? It's something that Rhule has done before with a couple various position groups during his time here. Or, what is it? And how much does the bowl game win, drive that confidence further? And looking at the schedule and the way you operate as a team, and the offensive coordinator and the quarterback and all those things. So there's only really one way to find out, and that's play the game or be in a close game, late and find a way to sort of make a play. He gave a great example about, he was talking about player-led leadership and stuff like that. And maybe that's in that third clip here.
Is this about the Iowa or the Ohio State and UCLA? Yeah, juxtaposition. Yeah, he did. And that's exactly what he's talking about, is players taking accountability, players being tough-minded enough so that they can look at two situations that are relatively similar but feel different and treat them the same. So that leads us right into this third and final clip that we have for you today from Matt Rhule on the opening day of preseason camp. Let's go ahead and play that, and then we'll discuss.
What you hope is that they're like, hey, I want to win. I'm tired of losing. It's not all this other stuff. It's all of us doing the right thing every day. And so it's who's going to be willing to tell someone that they care about, or another great player, hey, stop doing that. That's not what we do. Let's do this. Or, hey, I need you to do this. And so when they're willing to have hard conversations with each other, when they're willing to hold each other accountable, that's player leadership. And not when things are easy, but when things are hard. I gave the example to them. I don't mind saying it to you guys. It was 13-6 last year against Ohio State. We were losing at halftime, and it was like a revival in our locker room. They were so excited. They were like, freaking, Johnny just made that kick, and they're like, we're going to come back and win this game. And we almost did. And then the next week it was 13-7 against UCLA, and we run off the field. People are booing, which we get, right? And we're in the locker room, and it was literally I was up there I was praying, not really praying, but I was trying to come on, guys. And it's just sad. Gosh, what's happening to us? And nothing happens to you in football. You take control of it and you run with it, right? So it's but I think looking back, they're well, why were they different? Well, because we're listening to everything else instead of just what's our standard. No matter what the score is, we keep.
Yeah. Cut it off abruptly, but he continued to just go there along the same lines. And I wanted to have that example included in that clip for everybody to hear, with what he said about the two games he was referencing. The Ohio State game when John Hull had just given Nebraska.
Thank you.
I was going to play the clip, and I was looking during the. Do you have it? I don't have it.
Gosh, it's not on here anymore. We got to go. I could pull it up quickly, but
yeah, we can probably do this right here. We can just go like this.
50 hole. Ha ha! Got it! Woo! John Hole, pure.
That's good.
Yeah.
By the
So
way,
that's what Matt Rhule was talking about.
They made it 14-6, not 13-6, by the way, just in case.
Yeah, come on, coach. What
if we're tracking on Rhule? But he's right. Everyone knew how that felt in that moment.
How could you not be excited after that? Listen to
John
this.
Hole. So yeah, and it felt different against UCLA when they were down because of what it was supposed to be. Like I don't blame a team for feeling that way. But what Rhule is talking about is, the ability to feel the temperature of like the player's ability to feel the temperature inside of the locker room and sort of adjust it based on what needs to happen, right? And it sounds like everything from Rhule's standpoint anyway, and he would know best because he's the coach and he has a pretty keen understanding of what it's supposed to look like. It sounds like he feels like they're checking all the boxes in that category, and they've grown a lot in that category over the last year specifically.
He said, "Nothing in football happens to you." So that's quite a statement right there. And I feel like Nebraska and Nebraska fans for a long time have felt like quite a bit of stuff has happened to them in the sport of football. But if you take the approach that you're in control and players impact other players, things that happen in games don't have to impact players in the way that Nebraska has allowed them to, then you're going to avoid the ups and the downs, the peaks and the valleys. Rhule talked about that for a while at Big Ten Media Days last week in Las Vegas, that one of the things coming off of year two that this program needs to get past is having those swings. And how much did we discuss a year ago around the Colorado game, and then even in the many weeks that followed the Colorado game, just how much of a high that was for Nebraska and what moving to that high in week 2 of the season may have meant for the psyche and the performance of the team when it got not so exciting, not so hype filled later in the season, like in the doldrums, the midpoint of the season in October. And that's an easy way to analyze it now, knowing that Nebraska lost 4 consecutive games. But I think even in the moment, you could see it happening. You could feel that it just wasn't quite the same. There wasn't the same kind of high feeling around the team when they played Purdue as there was, or Indiana as there was when Nebraska played Colorado. And that's something that they're looking to get past. And I think it plays right in with that answer that we just heard from Matt Rhule.
By the way, not to dwell on this, but I have to say it. Could you imagine Nebraska's previous coach saying nothing in football happens to you? Because I can't. That's just something that has been around, and there's a reason that it's been around. And it's a hard thing to get out, right? You hit a line drive in a baseball game and it's 100 miles an hour off the bat, and the guy robs you in the alley in left center field. You're like, oh man, this is the worst.
Right.
But truthfully, the process is pretty good. And you should be pretty positive. At least that's what I would take from it. You should be pretty positive about what you did just then, and they made a play, right? So I got to go make a play now, right?
So
there's a lot of things there.
What you won't hear from Nebraska, at least not from its head coach, is a comment when something goes wrong this year that it feels like you're living inside of a horror movie. That's not the way that they want to approach.
I don't think you'll hear from any players that their head coach is sad and they feel bad for him or anything like that. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I will say this. This was the first big gathering of the Nebraska media group. Yesterday was, and a lot of how was your summer, that kind of thing. We saw some of these people in Las Vegas last week, but that was a much smaller traveling contingent, and many people were out yesterday who had their first chance of the of the summer to get together in the group. And that stuff that happened at Big 12 Media Days that we're not going to talk about right now, a couple weeks ago in Texas, we know with that coach that has been in the news.
Mm-hmm.
It was a topic.
I bet it was. Yep.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
I'll just leave it at that.
All right. That's it for us today. We'll have more coming up tomorrow and the rest of the week. And we're going to roll this thing right into football season. We are under a month away from kickoff, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, you could check out The Portal Show. It's on YouTube. It's wherever you get your podcasts. Check it out today.